Hey y'all, it's me, Kim. How are you doing? I'm good, thank you so much for asking. So, the next video I'm about to record is going to be on this huge cheating scandal. People have asked me, how do I feel about it? Because I went to Harvard. I decided I would do a video about Harvard and my Harvard experience. Also because ever since I made that video about how I failed out and then had really bad depression and then went back to school and ended up finishing, people have also asked me about like the good things. So this is going to be a video about the pros and cons of my Harvard experience. You know, recently I've been really thinking and realizing that like it feels like yesterday. You know, like I don't feel super removed from it at all, but like I am, you know, I'm 30. I'm actually recording on my birthday. Today's my birthday. And like, so hopefully I will not talk about being 30 all the time because it's finally my birthday. And yes, I do work on my birthday because what do you call that? Commitment. Also, what do you call that? Bills. So what I wanted to say was that it feels like I was in college yesterday. You know, all of these experiences are so vibrant in my mind, but I am a little bit removed. I mean, you know, I still creep on the under. I have put this on my face. I thought it was primer, but it's not primer. It is not primer. So I put something on my face that I believe to be primer. It is not primer, but it's already on my hands, so I'm gonna continue putting it on my face. It is Born to Glow Liquid Illuminator from NYX. I've put this on my face. Okay, so anyways, I'm 30, you know, I was a freshman 12 years ago, over a decade ago, which is so crazy. So I'm a little bit removed, but I still have memories, so I can talk to y'all about my memories about what happened. So, as we all know, I know maybe we don't all know, but I wanted to go to Harvard since I was like really, really young. I'd set my sights on it really, really early. I was very competitive. In everything, but especially academics, because people said, you know, you're smart. So I was like, oh, I'm smart, so let me be the best smart person I can be so I can get accolades and awards and feel good about myself. So I was that. So I had visited Harvard a couple of times before I actually applied. Sorry, my aerosol foundation. Ooh, we're running out. We're running low. Oh, this is almost done then. Oh, this is finished. Okay, well, that's done. R.I.P. So in high school, I've been fortunate enough to visit Harvard a couple of times because they have this big speech and debate tournament, and I did speech and debate in high school. That's why I speak so well. And so I knew the campus, I knew the area, I knew I liked it. I knew I liked Boston. So I applied early, and by the way, let me just tell you, there's a little trick that you don't know if you don't do your research. But the admission rate for early applicants is much higher. So I decided to apply early because I knew I wanted to go to Harvard for sure. And I also knew, based on my research, nobody told me this, I learned this on my own, but for my year, the admissions rate for early applicants was like 20%. That's really good. So I already knew. So if you want to go to an elite school, or your kid wants to go, your niece or nephew wants to go, you have somebody in your life who wants to go to an elite institution, and they know for sure where they want to go, then you should absolutely 100% apply early, because the pool that they're choosing from is much smaller. And I'm pretty sure that in my year, like half my class, the class of 2011, was chosen early. That's just it's a little tip, right? Because overall the acceptance rate was, I think, 20%. No, overall the acceptance rate for my class here was 9%, which at that time seemed so low, but now the acceptance rates are even crazier. So overall it was 9%. For early action admits, it was 20%. So that's a 1 in 10 chance It's a 1 in 5 chance versus a 1 in 10 chance, right? So you've doubled the odds that you're gonna get accepted anyways. Now, because so many more people are applying, it's down to like, I don't know, 13% or maybe 14%, but still, that 14% is much better than the overall acceptance rate of like 4.5% or 5% or whatever it is. So I'm just saying, if you have a desire to go to a fancy school, apply early. Tell your friends, particularly if they're black. Don't tell me I never gave you anything, because I just gave you. I put you up on game. So I applied early, knew I wanted to go, got in, was super, super excited, visited during the admitted student weekend, which we call what? Pre-frosh. I don't know why I asked y'all what we call it. Like, everybody who's watching this went to Harvard, but we call it pre-frosh. And immediately loved it, and immediately knew that I was gonna hang out with black people. So this goes to like the first major pro of my Harvard experience was, now I don't know what it's like now, you know, we're as grown folks, we're hearing mixed things about what it's like now, but when I was an undergrad, there was we called it the black community. So black people make up, I don't know, 13-14%. They make up as much as we do in the United States. They're really intentional about that, right? So black folks make up 13-14% of the population, but we had a really strong network of black people on campus. So lots of black people organizations. There was an organization for black women that I absolutely loved. I can't remember if I've said it here or elsewhere, but that organization was really central to the burgeoning of my black feminist identity. It's just so empowering. I cannot say that freaking word. It's so empowering to be around other black women who like know their shit, and they brought in tutors, you know, black women tutors, graduate students, and we brought in black women professors at the college. It was just like a real community. So we had that. And you know, the Black Students Association, and then if you want to get into your ethnic identities, they had that for African students and Caribbean students, all of that sort of stuff. And it was so good. It was wonderful, right? So I'm so glad, right? Because, you know, for the big things like pre-frosh, you know, people be faking it and putting on, you know, but I was so glad that when I actually got to Harvard, there really was a black community and like this network of black people who love black people, who had similar upbringings and experiences academically and socially and all of that other stuff. And so it was just amazing, right? And the other thing about black community is like, it's not just about partying at all. So the social stuff was very, very important. And the social stuff was very important for me in particular because I just didn't party. I was so focused on leaving Oklahoma in high school that I didn't party. I didn't really have fun. So it was so beneficial for me to be able to go to Harvard, meet all these black people who knew what I was talking about, knew where I was coming from, and we partied, we hang out. I did my best drinking in college, girl. Best drinking. I don't even drink like that no more. As a grown person, my body can't take it. I don't like the taste of alcohol. But in college, we were champs. We were champs. So, we did that. I'm gonna have to put some water on my beauty blender, BRB. There's this black community. So not only did it give you a social outlet because, you know, all of us nerds from wherever we're from in the country, we just came together to party, have fun, we jig, we threw little parties like in our rooms, we threw big parties, I found my best friends, we linked up, but also it's really important because look, Harvard is not a party school. Even if I had an amazing time and drank all the time and had so much fun, it's not Ole Miss, okay? It's not Auburn. It's never going to be the University of Texas. So we did party, but everybody was still very, very ambitious, and it was very beneficial to be around all these black folks who were very ambitious in different ways. So you had that, and you know, you never had to worry about, you know, the stereotype threat or whatever. But also, you know, we came together academically. So I became an African American Studies concentrator because freshman year when I was picking classes, everybody was like, because I went into college wanting to do political science, but at Harvard it's called government. So I came in really wanting to, you know, be Condoleezza Rice. I mean, you know, not Condoleezza Rice because I was already liberal by the time I got to college, but doing political stuff, right? So I stumbled into my first AFAM class because I had already linked up with this community from pre-frosh, and then over the summer people are still, you know, you're making your friends and you're adding them on Facebook and, oh, I'm so happy, and right? And then the fall of freshman year, and everybody was like, you know, talking to all the black people, and I'm like, so what are you gonna do? What class are you gonna take? And they were like, well, we're gonna do intro to AFAM, or AFAM 10. AFAM 10 is what the class is called. And it was taught by Henry Louis Gates and Evelyn Higginbotham, two giants in the field. I'm like, let me just tell you, when I think about how lucky I freaking was to be taught by those people, beyond lucky. And I was like, well, I don't really know what that is. Literally had no idea. But I was like, well, I'll go. And so I, you know, sat in on the class and I was like, oh, I loved it. I mean, that literally linking up with black folks in those first weeks, like, changed the trajectory of my life for real, okay? So that's that. And then, you know, not just in, you know, AFAM 10, but basically in any class that you were taking, you knew that if there was a person who messed with black people, because every black person who goes to Harvard does not mess with black people, right? There are quite a few Malia Obamas. No shade to Aaliyah, but she don't have no black friends. She not going to the black people stuff, right? Come Harvard Yale time, she's not at the black tailgate, okay? And that's okay. You know, we're all different. But for my college experience, it was very helpful that if you were in a class, and I've always been not great at science and math, you knew that if you were in a class and there were other black people who messed with black people there, that you were gonna be fine because y'all could hook up to study together. Somebody would give you a study guide. Somebody would let you borrow their books if you didn't want to buy the book. And it was very, and you know, even like we had a listserv. And even if like you're in the library, right, and you forgot your charger, but you don't want to leave the library, you leave it out, send it out over the listserv and be like, okay, y'all, look, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. This is a long shot, but does anybody have a charger that I can borrow for, you know, 30 minutes or whatever? And people did, and people were happy to help each other. I mean, that's really it. Now, that doesn't mean everybody liked each other. No. But we recognize, I mean, no, for real. But generally, we recognize that nobody was gonna make it if we did not invest ourselves in building community. And that community, as well as my best friends who are black women, is why I was able to get through it. Because everybody was invested in, I need you, you need me, we're gonna do it. So on multiple levels, the fact that I was able to engage so deeply with black folks and find so many black folks who weren't, you know, Clarence Thomases, that made a huge difference. Now, like I said, you know, I'm hearing mixed things about what's going on today, but back in my, like, go on my Instagram right now, right? The person who, you know, commented about how she doesn't ever see me with black people on Instagram, you don't. Because whenever I talk about college or whatever, it's a bunch of black folks. And we still love I mean, it's a real thing, even all these years later. So that is a huge plus. Huge plus. So not only did I, you know, experience what it's like to be in a community of Black peers, I also understood, because I decided to major in African American studies. I'm looking for oh, there it is. Because I decided to major in African American studies, I also learned what it's like to have a community of Black scholars, Black adults, and even where I lived as an upperclassman. Thankfully, I lived in a house called Mather, and in Mather House, there was one Black administrator who was like over the dining hall, but that's like a big thing, right? So like she was the manager, and so where you're spending your time eating your food, she was so wonderful. She became like a second mom to us. She looked out for us. The Black and brown dining hall staff, we were all down. That's why you can't mistreat people who are messing with your food, y'all. You can't mistreat people and think that you're better than them because you're a student and they're working. That does not make any sense. I really hope that we know, especially as Black folks, like as a Black person, you know, like you're less than a generation from someone in your family being, you know, the help or whatever. So we always made it a point to be cool with them, to talk to them. We even like invited them to our parties sometime. So we had Black, you know, students, Black people in the places where you lived, wonderful Black faculty who were so supportive. Now look, when I failed at look, even when I was failing out of school, right, they were like, we want to help you. It was a mess, girl. It was a mess. You know, I wasn't doing no work. I was just not in a place to do anything. And you know, because my major is African American Studies, that means that 80% of the classes that I took were about Black people, and 90% of those classes were taught by Black people. So I have a very rare experience of having more Black teachers at Harvard than I did white. So that's pretty remarkable. And those Black teachers were like, girl, look, we know you're going through some things. We know. But we also can't just make up a grade for you. So are you gonna? And I was like, no, I'm not going to, but thank you so much for asking, right? They tried to help me so much, and I think that they went out of their way to help me. So that's a part of my wonderful experience as a student. But also the other thing about that student experience is, like, even when I came back, they were so kind and wonderful and open and understanding. Really, truly. So I just had I'm just looking at this and seeing if this is something that I want to pursue. I'm just looking at it. You know, sometimes you just try new things and you have to go, okay, well, do you even like that? I think I do like it. So pros, Black folks, Black community, Black people. I mean, basically, my pro is there were a lot of dope Black people at Harvard, and I was able to shape my college experience in a way that helped me to find them, seek them out, and have a wonderful time inside and outside of the classroom. And the other thing is, another pro is going to a college with a lot of money is fun. You know, when you don't have to worry about resources. We had really good food most of the time. You know, I had some back and forths with the financial aid office because, you know, it's hard if you're like a middle-class Black person. You know, any middle-class Black people out there, you feel me, where you can kind of get caught in the financial aid black hole, right? Where, like, on paper, your parents make a lot of money, but, like, they still Black people. So they're trying to do your debt and their debt and their families. I mean, it's just different. The responsibilities, financial responsibilities for Black people and white, they're different. So we went back and forth, but there was never a question of you're not going to be able to go to school because we don't have money. I mean, it was just a little frustrating. The other thing I liked about Harvard, so the money is good, right? So if you want to study abroad, you can do that. You can find money to do that. I had got a wonderful stipend to spend a summer in DC. That was amazing, right? So there's resources, there's you can choose a class on literally anything that you want. You can find it, or they'll figure out a way for you to create the class yourself. Lots of access to even research resources. So tons and tons of archives, incredible access to archives, old books, 300-year-old books. I mean, just as a research facility, obviously it's the best school in the world. That was wonderful. And they were very, very organized when it came to guidance and you know, just helping students navigate that stuff. That was my experience. And also, I have to say, I know people have different mental health experiences with their colleges. Even with Harvard, people have different. But when I had an emotional breakdown after my father died, they were extremely accommodating, and they also never forgot about me. So like, you know, a year or two when I was out of school, they were like, do you want to come back? You should consider coming back. Come back to school, re-enroll. You know, they started to contact me and my mom and be like, you need to finish your degree. Like, come on, you know, let's do it. So that is a part of the reason why, I mean, you know, I was gonna go back because being out in the real world is not fun. But that is their persistence and their, you know, enthusiasm in trying to get me back was a reason why I ultimately finished. And that's a big deal. You know, it's a big deal not just for me, probably a bigger deal for my, you know, mother and my family. Ooh, okay, we're really super red now. Maybe we should try to, okay, well, what we're gonna do is just to try to neutralize that a little. I don't think that I really want red on my eyelids, or orange. I'm not sure that that's what I want. But anyways, they were great. Like I said, the food was good. I gained so much weight because you can eat food any time of day. Do I have anything else? Do I have anything else positive to say? I guess my last positive is gonna be, I love a ritual. I truly, truly do. That's why I still, you know, I don't hate the Black church, even if I think it has some huge issues, right? I just love ritual. I love old things. I love, you know, pomp and circumstance, and Harvard has a ton of that. One of the most memorable experiences of my life is graduation day, in part because Oprah was the commencement speaker, but also because there are so many old ass rituals from 250 years ago, 300 years ago at this point. So I love that stuff. You know, I love walking through the streets of Cambridge. I mean, it's just fun for me. And oh, wait, I already talked about the extracurriculars. I mean, you can find any freaking extracurricular or intramural sport or whatever. Okay, that's the good. Those are the pros. The con, and I think the biggest con, was the housing is such a fucking mess. Oh my God. It was like, what is going on? What have you done? No, that's not what I wanted to do. So the housing is old as hell. My freshman year, I lived in a dorm called Canada, and Canada is an old ass brick dorm built in the 70s, and it was ugly on the outside, ugly on the inside, cinder block walls, horrid, absolutely horrid. And even when you move up to upperclassmen housing, like the real houses, like Harry Potter, it's still, you know, they're actually better. So last time I went for Harvard Yale, I was really impressed because, you know, I stayed with a girl who is she's a graduate student, and I was impressed because they've done a lot of renovations. So they have like elevators, girl. Well, my actually upper class dorm did have elevators, but most of those houses do not have elevators. So how are you getting to the 5th floor? You're walking. Like, it's a mess. It's a mess because those dorms, we call them houses, are old. They're old. They were old when John F. Kennedy was in them. So when we're, you know, in them in 2010, they're old. They're old as hell. My dorm actually isn't that old. It was from the 70s. Like, it was like new when Conan O'Brien stayed in my house, Mather House, but like in the house right next to us, like, they're old. They're so old that they have like servant quarters. But now, I mean, but not now, because I've been out of college for a while. But like in 2010, it's like they have servant quarters, but like an actual real student has to live in the servant quarters. So the servant quarters is what I meant to say. So that becomes a problem. It is not the most comfortable living. Now, me and my roommates were lucky because we got into a great house and we all had singles. But like most people, single as in you have a room to yourself, most people do not have singles. Most people have to have a roommate. Crazy. And a lot of those dorms, they do not have air conditioning. And when I was in college, didn't have cable. So I mean, not until the very end, like literally not until like 2010, 2011 did they install cable in the dorms. So it was very struggly, like struggly for real. A lot of them look beautiful on the outside. They're all nasty on the inside. People have had insect problems. They have mice problems, mouse problems. Mice is the multiple. So that's surreal. But they have been doing a lot and investing a lot of money over the past 5 or so years to update. From what I've seen, they've done a really good job. When I was in college, it was a mess, girl. Another thing is, you think when you're going into college, you think that you're gonna spend, because, we always hear about how many colleges are in Boston and, there's so many young people. But, Cambridge is separated. I mean, we have MIT down the street from Harvard, but Cambridge is really separate from Boston. You gotta, because back in my day, we didn't have Uber, we didn't have Uber, we didn't have Lyft, right? So you have to take the train and try to get into Boston and hang out or whatever. The train stopped at a certain period of time, so we were really like on an island. Also, we had work to do. This wasn't a party school, so we were not out partying, and spending all that time to get elsewhere. So we were kind of on the Cambridge Island. That was definitely a downside. So that means that, like, as much as we interacted with the black people that were like we could touch, and also we interacted with the black people down the street at MIT, there were far fewer and they were less cool. We missed out as undergrads on the opportunity to like really tap into those networks. Another thing is it is expensive. There's no merit-based aid at Harvard. There's no merit-based aid at any Ivy League, not even at Stanford. And like I said, like if you are come from a lower income household, you're good. You're good as long as you don't get a high paying summer job, because they're going to take into account that income when they are calculating your financial aid. So, that was always, we were always talking about the struggle of like, y'all, we are black. Even if on paper our parents have it like that, they don't have it like that. Or even if on paper your parents are struggling, not doing too great, if you happen to get a really great an internship at Facebook or at Goldman Sachs or whatever, where they're paying you $20,000 over the summer, Harvard is saying, no, we expect you to put that $20,000 on the books, so that was a big deal. And I guess and obviously another big thing is I don't have any enormous racial trauma around my college education. It's so interesting because after this this thing with the bribes and the scams, people have been talking about their race-related trauma from college, and I don't have any. I really don't. I think a part of that is I'm from Oklahoma, like I'm from Texas, I'm from Oklahoma, so like I am used to a certain kind of bigotry, a certain kind of, I'm trying out a new eyebrow thing, but I don't even know if it's really doing me a lot. White people being mean or whatever is not, that's life. I guess, and maybe that's like sad that I feel hardened to it or I'm not fazed by it, but I'm not. I think other people who have different kinds of racial trauma, not to minimize it, but I don't know, I had a black major, I lived with black people, my social circles were black, so I was insulated from a lot of the microaggressions and those hostile interactions with white folks and whatever. But that's not to say that they don't happen, because I certainly have talked to and do talk to people who, you know, have very bad, I mean, you know, if you're an economics concentrator, if you're a government concentrator or a, you know, organic chemistry concentrator, where you're interacting with much more white folks as students and as faculty and administrators, you're gonna have a different, you know, different stuff to say about the racial issues at Harvard. I purposely avoided that, so I cannot relate, but I don't want to, I definitely, you know, I don't want to minimize it. So yes, white people are gonna do white people stuff. So whenever you have any interaction with white folks, there's gonna be some racism. Even when it came to like partying, there was, you know, administrators made these rules that we felt sometimes were racially discriminatory, and they were really open about that. And Harvard, again, is not a party school. I think another big thing is like, you have to work, okay? So if you want to party, if you want to hang out, if you want to get together, you got to work to do it. They basically discourage it, right? Because, you know, parties have to shut down at a certain time. There are no like real on-campus party spaces. They're so hard to secure. I don't know what it's like now, but back when I was in college, they were really difficult to secure. And so that stuff got outsourced to the final clubs, which are basically like sororities, but like, no, final clubs are basically fraternities for, you know, old rich fraternities basically. Now there is a push, I don't know if it's happened yet, but there was like a mandate that they had to integrate, they had to become co-ed. But for hundreds of years, these final clubs, aka fraternities, were just, you know, for old rich people. And, you know, there were a significant number of black folks, and because we were in the black community, we knew them and we could go party. But it still means most of the people on campus are not getting into those clubs or not being invited to go to the parties or whatever. So you're gonna be scrambling for a social life unless you are well connected. But everybody is not gonna be well connected like that. And so that's definitely a real downside. Everybody is not, you know, the social butterfly, or, you know, I happen to make friends with the social butterflies, so I was able to go to quite a few parties and whatever. But if you're not in, you're out for real. And so you're basically, you know, shit out of luck when it comes to a social life. So, and even now, Harvard is doing everything that they can to come down on it. So final clubs are now banned. Fraternities and sorority participation is now banned. I mean, like, they are coming down. So now all of that stuff has gone underground. And if you want the college to recommend you for a Fulbright scholarship or a Rhodes scholarship, you cannot be a part of a single gender organization. That's a big deal, you guys. I feel like people who don't, like, these old ass networks of people, they're saying you cannot do that and be a Rhodes Scholar. Like, that's a big deal. So, or be the head of a officially recognized organization. That's a big deal. So, you know, if that stuff is important to you, no. We also don't care about sports. Now, that's not a down for me, but if you're into sports, then that's going to be a downside for you, because nobody cared. We only cared once a year, and that is during Harvard-Yale. And even Harvard-Yale, you know, I guess that's another down, because you got to really organize. And Harvard-Yale, you know, I don't know. Obviously, it's the annual Harvard-Yale game. It's basically our equivalent of a homecoming game. But it's in November, girl, and it's so cold, and it's just, I go back every year for Harvard-Yale, or try to, because I think it's so fun, and I loved college, and I love my friends. But as a whole experience, being cold, and I don't care about football, and that's the only time of year anybody ever cares, like school spirit. It's, you know, and especially if you compare that to like a real like state university's homecoming, you're like, okay, well, this is fake, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is all fake, you know. But there's that. And also, you know, something that we really do need to get better at is I stay in touch really hardcore with the people that I was actually in college with. What has disintegrated over the years are the networks of people like way above and below. So we have had a couple of, you know, Black alumni weekends, but that stuff is not kept up to the degree that it. So we have had a couple of Black alumni weekends, but that stuff is not kept up to the degree that it should be at all. I mean, like, maybe I actually will invest myself in that this year, but it's very easy to lose track of the Black people in particular who are, you know, ooh, okay, just trying to make sure I don't smear my mascara. It's very easy to lose track of the Black people 10 years older than you. Or are there Black people 10 years? Actually, there are, which is so crazy. There are people who are 2021. So, you know, we don't have a great infrastructure in keeping that stuff up. And the only way that you can keep in touch for real is if you are a social butterfly, or if you are kind of a visible person like I am. I think it's definitely easy to be, you know, caught up in the mix that way. Oh, I guess, you know, speaking of, you know, easy to get lost, you know, Harvard is a school that is filled with, if you've ever seen Election, they're filled with Tracy Flick types, people who are go-getters and aggressive and all of that. And if you are not aggressive in, you know, pursuing relationships with your peers, if you're not aggressive in pursuing relationships with academics, professors, and whatever, and graduate students, you're gonna miss out, because there's 10 other people who are super aggressive and focused and determined, and they will do it. There's a lot of pressure. I mean, I feel and have always felt pressure by just looking around, and everybody is doing amazing things, and they are, you know, now that I'm older, now that I'm 30, right, their careers are really taking off, and they are selling their startups for millions of dollars, and they're writing their books, and they're getting their PhDs. And, you know, I feel good about where I am, and I've been on some fancy lists, and I've, you know, accomplished some things. But if you are prone at all to comparison, you're gonna be really fucked up out here, because everybody is doing stuff. Everybody is doing good, and they're doing well, and like, you just have to really be comfortable with, like, you're not the best. You're not the standout here. Everybody is brilliant. Well, everybody is not brilliant, but there are enough brilliant and determined and well-connected people to where, you know, you're gonna feel inadequate if you're not on your shit. And when I was out of school for those 2 years, I definitely felt that. I really felt like I'm fucking up, my life is passing me by, everybody else, I mean, so that's a real thing. And even when we get together for Harvard Yale, or for reunions or whatever, it is just so easy to get caught up in that stuff. Anyway, y'all, that's pretty much all I have on the pros and the cons of Harvard. Would I go again? Absolutely, 100%. I'm sad that, you know, this legacy admission system is about to be fucked up, so I probably not gonna be able to send my future kids or my nieces there. I had a wonderful overall time. I am so glad my life changed for the better because I decided to go to Harvard. I absolutely 100% recommend it. I feel genuinely sorry for the people who had terrible college experiences and terrible experience with Harvard College. Cannot relate. You know, that's all I can really say about that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Watch the next video. I'll see you next time. Bye.